going on, everybody? It's your boy Daytime Cheese, and week 2 is officially over. And let's see how this week really went. Alright, so this week I went on my picks, and in total I am on my picks. So yeah, let's get into this week 2 recap. Alright, let's get into the first game that I talked about in my week 2 preview video and predictions, which is Iowa State and Iowa, which is the Cy-Hawk rivalry game. Now, Iowa State ended up coming out on top 16-13. It was a pretty close game. I thought both teams played pretty well. I mean, let's look at the box score here. Mark Gronowski, I have to learn to say Gronowski and not Gronkowski, was 13 of 24 for 83 yards and an interception. Not great. But he did have a rushing touchdown, which is the only touchdown Iowa scored. Now, Iowa State, Rocco Becht had a pretty decent game. He was 18 of 27 for 134 yards and a touchdown. Iowa State had no touchdowns on the ground. However, Abu Sama and Carson Hansen had pretty good games on the ground, all things considered. There was a muffed punt by Iowa, which is a kind of a controversial call, as some people were calling for a fair catch interference, yet it was overturned. So that is the only turnover that happened this game besides an interception by Iowa State's defense. So this game was, again, pretty close. It was a very defense-heavy battle. And yeah, let's hop into the next game. Now, let's talk about USF beating the Florida Gators. Number 13 ranked Florida Gators go down at the Swamp versus the USF Bulls. Now, I had called that this was going to be a closer game than most people expected. I thought USF was going to be good. Now, I did choose USF to lose this game, but Byron Brown and Alex Golish proved me wrong. If we just look at some of these stats here in the box score, both quarterbacks had pretty good games. Byron Brown was through 23 of 36 passes completed, 263 yards through the air, a touchdown, and no interceptions. Lagway was 23 of 33 for 222 yards, a touchdown, and an interception that was just overthrown to, I believe his name was it Chenault? I believe it was James Chenault. Yeah, it was James Chenault. So, on the ground, Byron Brown had 17 carries for 66 yards. Alvin Isaac had 5 carries for 36 yards. And Contavious Norton had 6 carries for 24 yards. Now, the biggest play did come from, I believe, Cartavious Norton, which was the play that, no, it may have been from Keyshawn Singleton, who had a huge touchdown, huge passing touchdown, a 66-yard bomb, and I don't remember who exactly was the one it might have been Alvin Isaac, but they sealed the game against Florida by getting USF into field goal range when they had full time or a timeout left. So that basically allowed USF to run out the rest of the clock and kick the game-winning field goal. Now, my reaction to the highlights of this game is going to be up on my channel. It's going to be in the cards, in the description, and probably at the end of this video. So if you guys want to watch my reaction and my analyzation of this game, feel free to go watch that video. Now, Jalen Ball had a very good game on the ground. He had 18 carries for 93 yards, averaged almost 5.5 yards per carry. So he had a very good game on the ground. Receiving, they very much fed the 2/3, meaning they fed Eugene Wilson and Vernal Brown III. Um, those were Lagway's main two targets. There were no fumbles on either side, and I feel like defensively it was a pretty good game. Now, these are Miami's next two opponents, so I have been really paying attention to these stats. I want Miami to look out for Mac Harris. Mac Harris is someone you don't really want to mess with, and so throw it the other way that he is and get the blocks that you need so he doesn't get you for a sack. Also, like I was saying earlier, James Chenault, he is not a player that you can just throw the ball to and he will get mossed. He is going to put up a fight every time the ball is thrown in his direction. Now, on the Gators defensive side, I saw more on the defensive line, like Tyreek Sapp and players like that I was more scared of. But the secondary also did not look bad either. So let's get into the final game before the two of my teams. Now, the final game that I discussed in my Week 2 preview video was Michigan at Oklahoma. I picked wrong here. I had picked the Wolverines. I thought Bryce Underwood would be able to get it done over John Mateer. And my reaction to these highlights are also up on my channel, and it will also be in the cards and in the description. So if you want to check that out, please feel free to do so. Now, looking at this box score, Bryce Underwood was 9 for 24. His completion percentage was pretty bad in this game. He had 142 yards through the air, while John Mateer had a pretty good game through the air. He had 21 completions on 34 attempts, 270 total yards through the air, and a touchdown and an interception that was just barely overthrown that caused him to have that interception. He also had 2 touchdowns on the ground on 19 carries with 74 yards. Javante Barnes was a very big piece to this game. He was a very big reason why Michigan's defense was not able to do the best. He was a very big distraction for that Michigan defense. He had 6 carries and 24 yards, but he could also do damage out of the backfield. So Michigan was also trying to stop that. As you can see, his one reception had 16 yards on the reception. Now, we also want to take a look at Dion Burks. He's a stud, man. He was absolutely incredible in this game. 7 receptions for 100 yards, 14.5 yards on average per reception, and a touchdown. On Michigan side, Donovan McCulley had a great catch on the back of a Oklahoma defender. He had 3 receptions for 91 yards. Oklahoma did muff a punt as well. There was 2 muff punts in my top 3 games of the week this week. So, yeah, let's get into the Ducks. Woo-wee! Man, the Ducks put belt to ass in this game against the Oklahoma State Cowboys. The Oklahoma State Cowboys were starting their second string quarterback for his first start, as their starting quarterback did get injured in week 1. However, just looking at the box stats, I don't think that would matter. Zane Flores was 7 completions out of 19 attempts with 67 yards and 2 interceptions, which were back-to-back pick sixes for the Oregon defense. Now, Oregon played 3 different quarterbacks throughout this game. Dante Moore had a great game. He had 266 yards on 16 completions and 21 attempts. A hat trick on touchdowns again. And Luke Moga then came in. He had 2 completions on 3 attempts for 53 yards, which was not bad either. Now, Oregon's rushing game was very strong in this one. Noah Whittington had 4 carries for 91 yards, including a 59-yard rushing touchdown on the second play of the game. Jalen Lamar had 6 carries for 87 yards and a touchdown. Mackay Hughes, still would like to see more of him, but he did have 9 carries for only 30 yards. Was a little disappointed in that, his longest being a 6-yard rush. DeCorian Moore had a jet touch pass that went for 25 yards and a touchdown. So I think DeCorian Moore had his due on that one. Derry Hill Jr. also had 1 carry for 19 yards and a touchdown. And Jordan Davidson had 3 carries for 6 yards and a touchdown. Now we go to the Oregon receiving. Jeremiah McClellan had 2 receptions for 76 yards. DeCorian Moore, on Oregon's third play of the game, had a 65-yard bomb touchdown thrown to him. Malik Benson, also 2 receptions, 48 yards and a touchdown. Gary Bryant Jr., 3 receptions, 46 yards and a touchdown. We'll have liked to see Kenyon Sadiq be used a little bit more. He only had 2 catches for 40 yards. But hey, you won this game 69-3. You didn't really need to use your starters that much. Now let's look at the Hurricanes. So the Hurricanes played Bethune-Cookman and put belt to ass again, 45-3. Would have wasted a little bit more points, but it doesn't really matter. We had our starters out in the second half. We scored on almost every drive that we had in the first 2 halves. So Carson Beck was 22 of 24 for 267 yards and 2 touchdowns. He played an incredible game. Emory Williams came in after that, had 8 completions on 12 attempts for 77 yards, no touchdowns. On the ground, Mark Fletcher Jr. had a great game. He had 11 carries for 86 yards and 2 touchdowns. Gerard Pringle, love the name by the way, had 2 carries for 36 yards and a touchdown, including a 30-yard long touchdown. Jamar Brown had 7 carries for 35 yards and a touchdown. Chris Wheatley-Humphrey had 7 carries as well for 33 yards. On the receiving side, Malachi Toney led the team in receptions and yards. However, CJ Daniels was the only receiver to have receiving touchdowns, as he had 5 receptions for 73 yards and 2 touchdowns. Dalen Upshaw had 3 receptions for 26 yards, and Ray Joseph had 2 receptions for 25 yards. Brock Schott had 2 receptions for 24 yards. Elijah Lofton had 3 receptions for 21 yards. And then some of the other players that got some playing time: Luca Gilbert, Tony Johnson, Nye Carr, Alex Bauman, who is the transfer from Tulane, Keelan Marion, Joshua Moore, and Jamar Brown. There was a fumble recovery for Miami in this game. This is their second game straight with a turnover. Ruben Bain had a sack, and believe the only sack of the day. He is looking even better every single game. Bryce Fitzgerald also had an interception, and that was about it. I mean, this was a week where not many great games were going to be played. This is a very early season. It's very early in the season. The games aren't going to be great at the moment. But we did have some good ones in facts of upsets and just having fun. I mean, there were other upsets around the country, as FIU had a decently close game against Penn State. They were only down by 3 possessions, but before the fourth quarter. Georgia only won 20-6 against Austin PA. Clemson was down at half to Troy. South Carolina, Illinois destroyed Duke. Mississippi State beat Arizona State. Baylor beat SMU. There were some pretty decently upset-worthy games in week 2, and it was a lot less than I expected. Mizzou beat Kansas. Army beat someone good. Army beat Kansas State, so that is definitely probably it for Kansas State this year. Start looking forward to next year, Kansas State fans. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave a comment what you thought of week 2 and what you're excited to see in week 3. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe to see more content like this, more content talking about college football. I will be here all 13 weeks this season, including the postseason. So be sure to stick around. But anyways, I bleed orange and green and yellow, and daytime out.